Do you know that if your trademark application gets rejected, you still have an opportunity to get a trademark on your mark or your logo, whatever it is that you're trying to get a trademark on? We're going to talk about it all today. I am Dave, 10-year intellectual property, dealing with everything from patents, copyrights, trade secrets, as well as trademarks. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret that a lot of people don't know, but it's actually two trademark registrars here in the United States. You have the principal registrar, which for all trademark applications that you file, and to the extent that they get allowed, those go on the principal registrar. That's the strongest registrar. It gives you a ton of benefits, which again we'll talk about here later on in the video. But you also have this supplemental registrar. So you have the principal registrar, you have the supplemental registrar. So to the extent that your trademark application gets rejected, that just means that it got rejected for the principal registrar. In other words, your trademark is not allowed to get uh, get put on the principal registrar for whatever reason that the USPTO and examiner gives in that rejection. However, it still may be a chance to get your trademark on the supplemental registrar, which provides a number of benefits. And I'll go over some of those benefits. One of the big benefits is you are still allowed to use that registration symbol. For those of you who don't know, when you see a mark or a logo and it has that R in a circle, that's mean it's a federally registered mark. And to the extent that it's not a federally registered mark, a lot of times you will see that TM, which pretty much is indicating to the consumer, to the masses, is I don't have a trademark, a federally registered trademark on this term or logo or whatever it is, the phrase, but I'm still using it in a trademark sense. But again, if you get your logo or whatever it is, trademark register on a supplemental registrar, you can still use that registered symbol. In other words, that R in a symbol, which again, it can be big for a lot of different reasons. Another thing is it prevents registration of other marks that are likely to cause confusion. So again, if I'm trying to register a mark and the USPTO issues me a rejection and say, hey, this mark is likely to cause confusion with this other mark that's already registered, your registered mark that's on the supplemental registrar still has that effect. In other words, the examiner not only uses marks on a principal registrar, but it also uses marks on the supplemental registrar to reject future trademark applications for a likelihood of confusion. So that's the second benefit. The third benefit is it allows you to use that supplemental registrar trademark in a basis for filing foreign applications. Newsflash for all of you who don't know, if you're using a U.S. trademark, if you have a registered U.S. trademark, that gives you no protection in other countries, whether it's China, whether it's India, whether it's Germany, France, whether it's in Japan. You have to go file for a trademark application or file for trademark protection in that specific country. And you can use your registered mark that's on a supplemental registrar as a filing basis for that international filing, which again is another big thing. The other thing is actually another benefit of you having your mark on a supplemental registrar is actually listed on the USPTO database. So again, if I go to the test database, TESS, go to Google, type in test, TESS, the trademark database is going to come up. If you select search trademark, and if I put in a trademark that I'm thinking about using, whether or not the registered mark is on a principal registrar or on a supplemental registrar, all those marks are going to come to me. So I can get an idea of what marks are out there and whether or not I can potentially or have the chance to register my mark that I'm thinking based on what's out there. So again, this has a big benefit because it can deter others from trying to file, not only adopting trademark names, but prevent them potentially from filing trademark applications, because as they're kind of searching to see whether or not their marks is protectable, your mark, even though it's on a supplemental registrar, will still pop up when they look at that trademark database. So again, it has the same effect of a mark on a principal registrar. If I'm typing in a mark in that I'm looking to use in a lot of different marks comes up, I don't know whether that mark is on a principal registrar or on a supplemental registrar. And to the extent that marks that are already registered that come up that are on a supplemental registrar, again, that can have a big effect for someone trying to file a trademark application, as far as not only deterring them for filing a trademark application, but even prevent them from adopting that trademark overall. In other words, you can have somebody who's looking to file for a trademark application or trademark protection on a particular logo or phrase or word. And if your mark comes up, even though it's on a supplemental registrar, it'll pop up in that database when a person searches that mark. And they would probably say, okay, this is already there. So let me just change my name of the company or my product altogether so that I can avoid trademark infringement or avoid some type of trademark lawsuit coming down the pipeline from somebody who is on the supplemental registrar, which this is a good lead in to that fifth and final point, is that you can use your mark that is registered on a supplemental registrar as a basis for filing a lawsuit in federal court. Now, you're going to have to provide some additional things when it comes to filing that lawsuit that you're going to have to prove in federal court that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But you can still file a lawsuit against somebody for trademark infringement, even though your mark is on a supplemental registrar. You're probably not going to file a lawsuit for trademark infringement if you don't have any a federally registered mark. And to the extent that your mark is federally registered on a supplemental registrar, you can, again, that can be a basis for filing a lawsuit in federal court, which again is a big benefit to you as a business owner going forward. So again, so you got to take the good with the bad. We just listed the goods out. Now let's talk about some of the things that an owner who has their registration on a supplemental register must prove when it's time to go to court. The number one thing they have to prove is ownership of the trademark. The number two thing, they have to prove that the trademark is actually valid by presenting some type of evidence. And this is the big thing between a principal registrar and a supplemental registrar, goes to this distinctiveness. If you guys looked at any of my videos that I've talked about trademark in detail, you have different categories that kind of, as your trademark kind of moves up the ladder, it becomes more distinctive. So if you have a generic mark is, you will never be able to register a generic mark. Think of aspirin. It kind of generally describes the product. You may be talking about a Tylenol, but you would generally say, hey, do you have an aspirin? You may be talking about an Aleve or a Tylenol, but you're kind of calling it generically an aspirin. So those generic marks will never be protectable. The next thing, you have a descriptive mark, which describes the nature of the goods or services. Think of U.S. News Report. It's talking about news in the U.S. Think about the Weather Channel. It's talking about the weather. So those are descriptive marks, and those without, again, what we call secondary meaning are not protectable. Then this next class is a suggestive mark. And this is you can protect these suggestive marks. Think of Facebook. Okay, you have to have some type of imagination. Think of, okay, Facebook. Okay, maybe it's a social media platform. Think of Netflix. Okay, internet, maybe flicks, pictures, videos. It causes the consumer to have to kind of conjure up their imagination to think of the goods and services that are used. Those are suggestive marks, and those are protectable. Then the last two categories that gets the strongest amount of protection is a arbitrary mark. Think of Apple, where you're using a word and you're using it in a completely different sense. Apple is not using it to have a fruit company. They're using it for a technology company. So that's an example of an arbitrary mark. And then think of the last one is a fanciful mark. And that's the last, and again, another very strong category of marks. Think a lot of these drugs companies that just make up marks. If it's a made up name, then it's going to be a fanciful mark, and those get the strongest amount of protection. So again, when you are, again, that's the biggest difference between a principal registrar. Is they're saying, the examiner, the USPTO, is saying, hey, this mark is distinctive. So in other words, it's suggestive, it's arbitrary, or it's fanciful. But in other words, it's a distinctive mark as well. Whereas the supplemental registrar, they're saying, hey, we're going to allow you to register this mark, but it's not distinctive. So when it comes to trying to, sue somebody in court, you have to prove to the court that your mark is distinctive. And how do you do this? You got to provide evidence. What can that evidence be? You have to provide sales. Maybe you have a ton of sales that you can put forth as evidence to let people know that, or let the court know that, okay, this mark has become distinctive because you're doing a ton of sales. Another one is marketing, advertising. You spent a lot of money on advertising your good or service, which again can be another way or some more evidence to be able to show the courts that your mark has crossed over into that distinctiveness category. And then the last thing that you can put forth is surveys. Go to the street, talk to people. If surveys are in your favor as far as okay, the mark is being, mark being considered distinctive and people knowing about the mark, then that's another means or evidence that you can put forth to kind of show the court that, hey, my mark is distinctive. Again, so even though you have the supplemental registrar, when it comes to filing a lawsuit, which again you can use your mark on a supplemental register as a basis for filing a lawsuit in federal court, you're going to have to prove ownership in that lawsuit, and you're going to have to show that the you have the mark has acquired this distinctiveness, which again, when it's on a principal registrar, it's already presumed to have distinctiveness. But that supplemental registrar, they're not giving you that distinctiveness, and that's something that you're going to have to provide or prove out when you're filing a lawsuit in federal court for trademark infringement. Then the last thing is this thing called incontestability. So when you have a mark on a principal registrar, after 5 years, and again, to the extent that it's on a principal registrar, is very limited circumstances where somebody can come and say, hey, this is not a valid trademark. Okay, yeah, we know it's on a principal registrar, but this is not a valid trademark. It's very limited means or ways in which someone can kind of try to put an argument for your trademark that's on a principal registrar being essentially not a valid trademark. But then after 5 years of your mark being on the principal registrar, you can get with something that's called incontestability, which pretty much makes your mark bulletproof in terms of somebody coming after your mark to say, hey, this is not a valid trademark for whatever reason. So you have that incontestability that you can get on your mark that's on a principal registrar after 5 years. You just fill out a paper and your mark becomes incontestable. And now somebody who's trying to, for example, if you sue somebody in federal court for trademark infringement for your mark that is on the actual principal registrar, they can't come back as a defense and say, hey, this is not an actual valid trademark because your mark is bulletproof. It's incontestable. And again, when your mark is on a supplemental registrar, you don't have that 5-year period that after 5 years of your mark being on a principal registrar, you can claim incontestability to it. You can never do that with your mark on the supplemental registrar. So if you have a mark that's on a supplemental registrar, even though 5 years go by, you don't have this, you can't get incontestability, or you can't say my mark is incontestable like you can on the principal registrar. You can never do that. So if it's 10 years down the line, somebody can still challenge your trademark. If it's 20 years down the line, somebody can still challenge your trademark as a result of it, whether or not it's a valid trademark. You can't say, hey, my mark is incontestable because it's been on this supplemental registrar for 5 years. You can do that if it's on a principal registrar and get incontestability after 5 years. But if it's on a supplemental registrar, you can never say to the court that my mark is incontestable. It's just not a thing. So those are some of the big things that maybe some disadvantages or some cons or some downsides of your mark being on the supplemental registrar. But again, it's a lot of benefits that you have for your mark being on the supplemental registrar. Let's recap. Number one, you can use the registration symbol, which is a big thing. Number two, it prevents marks from being registered that are confusingly similar. Number three, you can use it to the extent that you want to file trademark protection on your mark in foreign countries. You can use your mark that's on a supplemental registrar as a basis for filing and protecting your mark in a foreign country. Number four, it's listed in the USPTO database, which is huge because it deters people from maybe filing a trademark application or even adopting a name that may be similar to your mark that's on a supplemental registrar. Then number five, you can use that trademark that's on a supplemental registrar as a basis in filing a trademark application. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Please hit the like button if you did. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of this IP community where we're trying to make more IP owners. That's the way of the world. Here in the US, we sell intellectual property. When you think of Disney and all your favorite shows, your movies, that's copyrights. When you think of your favorite brands, the Nike, the Chick-fil-A, the Starbucks, that's trademarks. And when you think of your favorite technology, whether it's by Apple or Microsoft or whatever the technology company is, that's patents. That's what we sell, not only here internally, but that's what we sell to the rest of the world, intellectual property. I'm trying to do my part, getting you to kind of get creative and not only think about ways that you can protect your intellectual property, but actually being able to protect your intellectual property and monetize off of it. And I thought this was interesting and I think helpful for a lot of people who, excuse me, again, may get their mark rejected from being able to get on the principal registrar, but you still have a chance with getting your mark on the supplemental registrar, which provides a ton of benefits. So again, let me know if you enjoyed this in the comment section. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.